Okay, audience, just you and me now. I'll keep an eye out, see if anybody else shows up. But let's move on to 28 years later, The Bone Temple, the brand new release, and just go over some thoughts here. Uh, so, so we have Spike is with the Jimmies, and it's not looking good for him. He's basically in a cult now. But let me just pull up a picture and see if I can. Yes, yes. Here we go. Here we go. The Jimmies. Yes, the the gang of crazy people living in the apocalypse. So now poor Spike's with them, and we got and he goes through a really disturbing initiation sequence that, well, blood doesn't really bother me in films, but I will say seeing someone get stabbed with a knife and bleeding out on screen because of it kind of triggered me a little bit because, to just not to get too personal, but something like that happened to me once with my hand. My knife blade went through my hand and spurted out blood, so I kind of got some PTSD for a second in this movie. So thanks for that. That was fun. Uh, so Jimmy officially welcomes Spike as one of his followers, and uh, he's one of the fingers now. And then they just have a jolly old time, of what inviting themselves into people's homes, and then as soon as they get what they want from those people, sacrificing them, because Jimmy Boy is actually a Satanist. I did not expect that going in to it. I mean, does have the necklace and everything with the upside down cross, but that doesn't always mean that he's a Satanist. Maybe he just really like Saint Peter. I don't know. He believes that he is basically the Antichrist, and he's gonna go out and deliver souls to hell. Just crazy stuff. I didn't mention, but in the very opening of 28 years later, you do actually see Jimmy's backstory, and it's kind of confusing the first time you see it. But it's a kid living next to a church, and his dad's a preacher, and yeah, his family gets killed by the infected, and the dad Jimmy hides in the church from the infected, but still sees his dad get killed by them. And yeah, that would screw somebody up mentally. So I kind of get why he is the way he is, but still not an excuse for what he's doing. But I guess it's kind of true, the child of a pastor or anything like that rebelling against their father. I mean, literally converts the cross that his dad gave him. So it's like, okay, yeah, I see what they're doing there. But that's really bleak and terrifying. So let's check in with our other boys. We have, what's Kelson and Samson up to? Well, Kelson is still observing the infected, still having a good time with that. But something's different about Samson in this movie. You can kind of tell immediately that, well, he Samson comes to him, he goes out of him, and after he sedates him with the morphine and takes the arrows out of him so he can heal a little bit. But then there's like, eventually you figure out, oh, actually Samson kind of likes Kelson. Like he's not really he's not really out to get him like you thought he was at first. and he just really likes morphine. He likes getting shot with the morphine darts and zoning out. And but see, that it's important because it ties into the infection and how it operates, because you get a little hint of it in the with from Samson's POV, like the very first time you see him in this movie, that he sees another person, but he sees them as an infected, and that's why he attacks them. So Kelson has this idea that the infection is like psychosis. So with the sedation, it quiets the person's mind, so they're not like it makes them more docile instead of violent. But Samson's a big guy. He kind of goes through a big store of morphine quickly. So Kelson's happy that he's kind of made friends with this giant zombie caveman dude, but it's it's not going to last. So he has to figure out some other way to still be friends with him, even though he's not like to make him non-violent, but figure out a more permanent solution. So he starts experimenting, trying to figure out what the chemical compound is, what he needs to do, how he needs to treat Samson. I always find this stuff interesting when there's someone that is sick in a story, and then with something unknown, and then they have to figure out how to fix whatever's wrong with them, or at least treat it to make it more bearable. But I find but this whole sequence with Kelson and Samson is fascinating, where you where eventually they get like friendly enough that Kelson's not afraid for his life with Samson. Like Samson's not going to tear his head off the second he wakes up. So Kelson actually does a little morphine too, get a little high, have some, and listen to music and dancing with the zombie, and it's such a weird film, but I really appreciate how weird it gets. Like it's so I get to contrast all the vile stuff with the Jimmies. They did something really kind of sweet and innocent with these two characters that I like. I like that the movie is about duality with humans, and like how we can be violent and evil, or we could be docile and friendly with each other. Just I like that they really explore that in an interesting way. And then we get let's go back to the Jimmies for a second. There is another character in the Jimmy's gang that is you can tell is like important to the story, because she is like with Spike a lot, and she's a little callous, because they're all kind of callous toward humanity and everything. Bad as the others, definitely not as bad as Jimmy himself. But like I always find those characters interesting. That there's a more of a nuance to them. That they're not they're going along with this cult ideology, but only it's because they don't have anything else. Like the cult saved them when they were younger, but they don't know anything. They don't know anything different, but they don't want to live in the cult forever. Like I find that really interesting. Jimmy Inc. I think is her code name that Jimmy gave her, but I just call her Big Sis because that's the energy that she brings. Erin Kellyman's the actress. You might know her from like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Green Knight. Just one of those faces I always recognize when I see her. But it's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool they brought her in for this. And I like that she is kind of looking out for Spike, even though it's not really a friend friendly relationship at first, but yeah, their whole dynamic throughout the movie is really interesting. And because of her, she actually sees the Bone Temple, and she sees Kelson, and she sees Samson all together. And because they're in a Satanistic cult, she sees all these statues, like these structures made out of bone, and this guy that's all like orange skinned and consorting with a demon, as they call the infected. She's like, "Is that old Nick?" See, I didn't know what old Nick meant at first, but like, that's an idiom for Satan. I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting idea." Going with the whole misinterpretation idea that I was talking about earlier. As you see the symbols of everything visually, I understand why she thought that that's what she was seeing. But it really was not that at all. I thought that was really interesting. So then she naturally reports back to Sir Jimmy, and she's like, "Hey, so you said Satan was your dad?" And I will say Jack O'Connell and her back and forth was really funny in this. Where he's looking through the binoculars and like seeing the Bone Temple, and it's like, "Oh, this must be new," or he's trying to play it off, like he has no fucking clue that existed. That's all brand new to him. He's trying to bullshit his way into not being called a fraud. I just love comedy like that, where it's like a character, especially a villain, that's a natural bullshit artist, getting called out, and other people starting to realize that they're not like a prophet, or they're not as smart as they thought this guy was. I love stuff like that. So naturally, Jimmy's kind of freaking out. It's like, oh no, I have to figure out who that guy is. Is he really Satan? And if he isn't, I'm screwed. If he is, I might be screwed. So he goes, checks out the Bone Temple for himself, and it's just so funny. I love the interaction between Jimmy and Kelson when they meet, because Kelson, like I said before, he's like a pacifist. He's not gonna like, try to harm somebody else just for showing up, even though he figured out Jimmy pretty fast that he's dangerous, and if he doesn't say the right things, if he doesn't do the right things around Jimmy, Jimmy would kill him, like pretty outright. But it's also interesting because when they're conversing with each other, they have he's kind of Kelson's kind of playing the role of his father, or a father figure kind of thing for Jimmy. Because Jimmy was just a kid when the apocalypse happened, and Kelson was an adult, so he's quite a bit older than Jimmy. So he's like trying to figure out what's this guy's deal, because he's clearly crazy, but there's something else to him where it's like he says he can speak to Satan, and he can like Satan commands him to do things, and Kelson's like, so this guy hears voices in his head, and he thinks that that's Satan, and then because of the trauma he had as a kid, he thought that Satan was actually his dad. Like it's really interesting. I like discussions like this, like psychology and philosophy, like this, like how people kind of make things up about their lives, about their pasts, and they begin to believe the faith over time that that's what actually happened, when that's clearly not what happened. We saw what happened, but this there's so many moving pieces in this that I really like. I like the stuff with that conversation with Kelson and Jimmy, and that Jimmy basically makes a deal with Kelson. It's like, hey, would you mind tomorrow night if me and my mates showed up and you could just dress up like you're Satan and make every one of my followers think that you're the real deal, so they don't stop believing in that I'm your chosen one. It's just, it's so funny, and I do think it's kind of a missed opportunity maybe with Samson, because Samson technically has been administered a cure at this point by the doctor. Like it's not 100%, not 100%. But after the meds are given to him, he runs off into the wilderness, try to sort himself out. I do kind of wish that the Samson was more involved in the later part of the story, because I think it would have been cool if the Jimmies are all in the temple with Kelson and then like threatening him, and then Samson just shows up and like just starts massacring the bad guys. I think that would have been cool, but I do appreciate what they do with Samson too. Like it's definitely not bad. I think it's really interesting. So Samson, you can kind of see it after he goes off on the wilderness. His senses are kind of coming back to him, where it's like he realizes that he's naked first of all, like not like the infected don't even think about that, but then he realizes, oh, I'm in the wilderness and I don't have any pants or anything on, so better cover that up somehow. I was like, that's interesting. Just a small little return of humanity slowly over the course of a few minutes in the film, but that's that's really interesting. And then he goes to this uh, there's this crashed train that apparently, I don't know if this is meant to be literal or not, but when he was a kid, he was on a train and he remembers, before the apocalypse happened, that his childhood memories, I think one of the last things he remembers was being on the train with his parents. So I don't know if this is literally the same train that he was on, and then before all the craziness happened. But even if it's not, it's just cool that it's like a metaphor thing, or he goes into this train and he like lays down, and he's like kind of sleeping, but he's dreaming about his meta history, that he's all these memories that are coming back to him from before the infection, and then they start to blend dreams and reality, where he's like, as he's imagining himself as the little kid self, and then the lady comes up to ask him for his ticket, but then he like doesn't have a ticket, but then she starts like yelling at him, and then it's like starting the dream is starting to fade away, and you realize like he's waking up, and it's not his memory anymore. He's surrounded by these other infected that are just normal infected, and he's like, oh, I'm cured now. Now these guys see me as a problem. Now I actually have to, like, they don't just let me exist. I'm actually going to have to fight these things now, which is it's really cool. Like, I just seeing Samson go ham on these infected that are attacking him, and like he's still, even though he's kind of cured, he still has the infected like super strength that he got from the infection. So he's still just like breaking people and like throwing them through windows, and kind of reminded me of a couple different things. First of all, the Hulk, obviously, but then Also, if you guys watch the show Primal, the main character Spear in that show is like a Neanderthal that's super strong and will physically throw down basically anything. Samson kind of reminded me of Spear, so that kind of made me like him a bit more too. So I appreciate that. And then we'll go back to Kelson, where he's preparing the Bone Temple to make it appear like Satan's palace, and it he has this vinyl collection that been listening to throughout the movie, and I just whenever he pulls out the vinyl of Iron Maiden, a giant smile went down my face because I was like, okay, this is gonna get really good because he's really gonna play it up, and yeah, gets to he really plays. He puts on a good show for the Jimmies when they show up. Plays Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden, and I'm just gonna say it. Don't ever enter a lip sync battle with Ray Fiennes because you're gonna lose because he lip syncs this Iron Maiden song while dancing and like doing these crazy pyrotechnics and uh, all these crazy visuals that he's doing while also doing like lip syncing, which is really interesting because of when the apocalypse happened in like the early 2000s, all these young people, even Jimmy probably didn't know have never heard Iron Maiden before, so they don't catch on that he's lip syncing and that he's not the voice isn't coming from him. So it's just really funny to see their reaction to it. Also, he sprays hallucinogenics in their face, so they're just tripping balls in this whole scene while the Iron Maiden is blasting and there's fire around them everywhere. It just, man, it's worth the price of admission just to see this scene. Let's see if I can play this right quick. I don't know if it will let me. It might not let me, but let me see if I can. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys. But just to give you like a minute. Wait. Okay. Let me try that again. This is my reaction to this scene. Is just
this is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Thanks, bud. It just like I said, worth the price of admission alone. Just to see Joe that Kelson puts on is incredible. And yeah, I didn't expect that. That was so unexpected and fun. Even though it's like, yeah, I know bad stuff's about to go down, but like at least it's a fun scene before all that happens. So then, it kind of cuts between this and Samson. Samson comes out of the train and he's just like covered in blood and he's like roaring like a wild animal. It's like fitting in with the Iron Maiden song. It fit really well for that part of the song. But then we get to the actual ritual they've cooked up. So Jimmy was going into this thinking, so he's going to pretend to be Satan, and he's going to basically give me carte blanche to rule over the fingers however I see fits, and just go about the same business, like reinstitute his authority over the group because the group is starting to not believe that he is who he says he is. And you may be thinking like, wait, what about Spike during all this? Like, what roles he play in this? He does have a small role in this movie, but he does play a really important role in the part because of the is after the commandments scene, I guess you can call it. He like the Jimmies are going to depart from the Bone Temple and go about their business. His mask, he recognizes the face. When he takes his mask off, he's like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. He doesn't want. He sees what the Jimmies are about, and he doesn't want Spike to be a part of that. So he very slyly, very quick on the draw, comes up with a final commandment for Jimmy. As I'm going to demand a sacrifice, just like God sacrificed his son. I'm going to sacrifice my son. And it just, boy, it goes to shit really fast when this happens, because then all the Jimmies are confused. They're like, wait, is this guy really Satan? Is he really telling us what to do? Are we supposed to listen to him? Are we supposed to listen to Jimmy? And then, well, Jimmy Inc. has just had enough of Jimmy Crystal, so she wants to kill this guy. So I just really like that. They turn all his followers against him, and then ends up in a very ironic predicament that he put himself in for doing all the heinous stuff he was doing all those years. But simply, he does, before he goes, he does knife Kelson, so Kelson is also dying because of what Jimmy did. So that's not as fun, but I really like the exchange between him and Spike when he's just reassuring them that everything's going to be all right, and he knows he's dying, but he's at peace with it. He's not afraid of it. It's the whole thing from the last movie, Memento Mori. You one day you will die. So he's long since come to peace with that ideology, so it's perfectly fine. And so then Jimmy Inc. Takes Spike away from it into the wilderness to try to figure out what their next move is. Oh, and her name's Kelly, by the way. She tells Spike that her real name, which I thought that was cool, that they learn each other's real name at the end. But then probably I like that. I thought the story was going to end there, but then Samson shows up for one last time and has an exchange with Kelson, which I really like, because Samson can speak now. He's regained most of his faculties. He's not fully back to his old self, but he can string words together and at least tell Kelson what he needs to tell him before Kelson dies. And it's really beautiful. It just says thank you, and then picks him up and just takes him off. I don't really know where. I don't think you really see where he takes him, but I thought that was really cool. And then Jimmy, it's really funny that in his predicament, he's just slowly dying, and he still has the hallucinogens in him. So when Samson shows up, and he sees Samson as the devil, basically, and it just cracked me up, because I was like, when I saw the hallucinogens, I was like, if Samson shows up, what are they going to see him as? I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that little visual gag there. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty satisfied with Bone Temple. It's a good movie. I do like it more years later. So even though without 28 years later, Bone Temple doesn't happen, basically. But I think it's a really good 1-2 punch of movies that, if you're interested in an apocalyptic story, but a different type than you've seen before, then it's really worth your time if you're interested in it at all. So I will say thanks, Griff, for dragging me to see 28 years later. I actually have come around on it quite a bit.